I'll say,
Okay.
okay, welcome everybody. This is my fourth episode, and I am going to let Ed do all of his own introductions before he starts his story. So, Ed, please start us off.
Hi, I'm Ed Dickson. I been working in Ukraine for about 30 years, uh, and just crossed the border back into Ukraine last night. Very, I was just almost jumping up and down, so excited to be back again. And it seems a little bit surreal every time I come. I come every other month now for about 3 weeks, and we're helping to feed people along the front line zones and just just mainly helping people everywhere we can. And um, I've been living in Canada since just before the war started. We came back on a furlough for 1 year, and I guess by God's providence, we were in Canada when the war broke out, and so we're safe and our home. Fortunately, even though it was just outside of Kiev, where the war was blazing at the beginning, it's still in one piece. And I'm going back and forth every other month and just just trying to help as many people as we can. Yeah,
That's incredible. Now, you said you had to fly into Warsaw?
yeah. There's no flights, of course, into Ukraine itself. I fly to Warsaw and then generally taking a vehicle, either a van or something like that. We take into Lviv. It's about a 7 hour drive now. Used to be a lot longer at the borders, and at one point it got to the point where we had to walk across the border. That was the only way to get into the country, which felt really weird after living in the country for 30 years and then having to walk across the border just to get in. Um,
Was that just a matter
but
of like wartime security or?
Yeah, it was wartime security, but it was also just that the backlog at the borders was just so massive with people and vehicles trying to get out, and of course the border was overwhelmed with work. I guess you would put it. Just uh, all the administration you can imagine of each person has to be documented, etc. Every vehicle needs to be done in the same way as it would before, but all of a sudden they had 10, 20, 30 times the volume of people moving. And so it was um, just a really, really crazy time. Nobody expected, nobody was thinking that it was really going to happen. So I think the whole country here was caught off guard in a way.
Mhm. If if you could paint a picture for me about your activities pre-war and what a regular day in the life of Ed in Ukraine would be compared to now.
Yeah, it's changed quite a bit. Before the war, we were primarily involved in helping orphan children. So we were in orphanages. There were about 24 different orphanages that we were helping. We were doing everything we could just to um, to to help with all the extra things that those children needed. And then um, when the war started, it was just a complete change. Um, I would say, the biggest thing right off the bat was we ended up actually evacuating about 1,000 of those children that we were helping to Europe, different countries. And so the first few months was just evacuating people. And then we were working in, um, the eastern part of Ukraine, evacuating people from bomb shelters in the war zones. And that
Crazy.
was, yeah, it was just to give you an idea. Like one of the pastors that works with us, he was evacuating people from a bomb shelter under a building in the city of Chiguyev, which is just east of Kharkiv, toward like near the Russian border. And they were evacuating people out of a bomb shelter. He had 21 people in a Dodge minivan.
That's
And,
amazing and
and you
terrible.
can picture that. You can picture that actually. And and then uh, he got them out of the bomb shelter took them, and there miraculously there was a gas station that had just opened when he was driving them out, and then he stopped, and it turned out they had hot dogs at this gas station. They were making hot dogs on this little grill, so he was able to buy hot dogs for almost everybody in the van, and he
Incredible.
brought them out, and a lady beside him in the van was just weeping while she was eating her hot dog. And so Sergey, he's a bit of a comedian, just a funny guy. And so he said he turned to her and he said, "So you don't like the hot dog very much?" And she looked at him and she said, "I haven't eaten anything in 5 days. Like it'd been 5 days since she'd had anything to eat at all."
My
And then on
goodness.
top of that, she said, "I'm not crying because of that." She said, "I'm crying because I just realized that the world is going on." She said, "I thought the world was coming to an end." Like they were in the bomb shelter for that many days. They really thought it was the end of the world. And when she came out and saw the gas station working and hot dogs, she just realized that the world was going to go on. Like it wasn't ending. And so you can imagine just how traumatic it was for those people, you know, everybody there.
I'm still trying to
So now,
calculate 21 people in a van.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
four in the very back, four in the back seat.
yeah, yeah.
No, but
So
Ed, what struck me there is war strips us right down to nothing, and I've never experienced it. I maybe shouldn't even be speaking of
yeah,
anything, but the little things, the smallest things become so prominent in your life.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So like since that time, we've been delivering food to people who are living in those war areas, and these are areas within 5 kilometers of where the war is actually raging. So they're very dangerous areas, but many people don't want to leave because they're like, well, what's going to happen to my house? What's going to happen to my land that I've been working on? What's going to happen to our garage and our, and and it really boggles your mind when you're with them and you think like, well, why wouldn't you leave? But I had one lady, she told me, she said, every corner of our house, it tells stories about our lives, and to just walk away from it, knowing that the moment they walk away, it'll probably be ransacked and is really tough for people. And then the other part is most of them they don't really believe that people out there somewhere will genuinely help them. And just the level of charity in countries like this is a bit lower than what we see in Canada. We need to just be extremely thankful for the even just the level of kindness and charity that we see in Canada. It is massively greater than you'll see generally in other countries. But people here started to help each other. I'm not saying they don't help each other; they do, but just the level of it isn't quite as high. And so the trust that someone out there would really help them, I think, unless it's a family member, they tend not to believe that it would happen. Yeah,
The impression I always received from what little exposure I've had to Ukraine and Ukrainians is that it's relatively like a lower trust society, and that
yeah,
seems to be prominent in like in Russia as well. That just
yeah,
socially they neither better nor worse. They just have lower trust.
yeah.
But I see now in this current
Exactly.
time, it can that low trust society, I guess, could affect people's generosity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like there was always the whole time we were working here, working at orphanages and that, like there was always a little bit, you could sense a bit of distrust even with us, and like because they were kind of looking at us, why would this guy from Canada,
Yeah,
like he can
what
live
do
in
you want?
Canada?
Right? What do you want?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and why is he here? Like why is he helping these kids? And I even had some people kind of, I heard that they were saying that the Canadians must be here to get the organs probably of the children and then sell them on the black market or something. And because that would make sense then, like because they were doing it for money. So it was very hard for people to believe that someone would just give up their life there to help people in another country. Yeah.
It's like it's the echoes of the brutalism from the socialist movements almost. Like
Yeah.
you were involved with I don't know what the proper name is, but I think of them as like commercially warehoused babies. You're very familiar with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any direct interaction with those institutions?
Um, Basically, like most of the orphanages where we were working, they were these are children that were born with some kind of a disability, and they were put into a institution, almost like a warehouse, right? And even worse than that, because it was dirty. It was, kids are crawling around, some of them without arms, without legs, and not only that, the biggest thing for me was just the deficit of love. Like,
Hmm.
you know, you can imagine being in a house where, you know, if you go into someone's home and, there's an argument going on and there's just this, you can feel it's kind of a tough time for them or something like that. But when you go into that place, those places, and you just feel like there's no love there. And the kids, the thing we noticed with the children there was that, they were all abandoned by their parents at birth. They knew that. And not only that, they knew that their parents were out there somewhere, but their parents didn't want them. And that was, just adding to the trauma, that they were going through. So what we started to do early on, we really came to the kids with the thing that I would say to them all the time is, you did not come to this earth from your parents. That, like, you may
Amen.
think that you came from your parents. You didn't come from you came through your parents from God. Like, God sent you here and he has a purpose for your life. And for a child without arms, without legs, in a place like that, it seems to us to be very tough. But I'm telling you, many of those kids, they completely grabbed onto that. We got one of my friends, very dear friends. She was 7 years old when we first got to the orphanage where she was, no arms, no legs. Started painting. She's been honored by the president's wife here in Ukraine as one of the heroes of the country. Just the artwork that came out. She holds a brush with her teeth and paints these unbelievable masterpieces. And when the war started, we got her out. We were able to get her to Romania, and then Canada came out with the program. We moved her to Sarnia, and she's living in Sarnia now. She's a permanent resident. Like, just unbelievable. And about 2 weeks before the war started, she told me, just point blank, she said, "Ed, I just have the feeling that I'm going to be living in North America someday, and I'm I'm going to have a beautiful apartment." And she's telling me all this, and you know, I I have maybe just as much faith as the average person, and I wanted to believe her, and I tried very hard not to say Natasha. Like, that's quite a dream for someone in your situation. But sure enough, within months, there she was, and we put in like, I was actually told by the Canadian government, someone in it was actually in an MP's office, told me that she would never get permanent residence. She's a quadriplegic, and and so I just I thought, well, we'll just apply anyway, see what happens. 2 weeks later, she calls me. She's got a special device she uses on her computer, and she calls me, and I see her on the video, and she's like, "Ed, I got my permanent residence." And I'm like, "No, no,
Crazy.
no, no, no." I said, "Natasha, no. They just sent you a letter that says that they received your documents. That's what that is." And she said, "No, it says I got my." And I'm like, "Oh, you're probably not translating it properly. Like, send me a picture of it. Can you take a picture of it and send?" So she got a permanent residence in 2 weeks. And
How?
just like, I have no idea. Like, to this
Incredible.
day, to this day, I've never heard of anyone ever getting like permanent. Usually it's like months, right?
Yes.
Takes months. Yeah, yeah, 100%. So, you know, and I could go on and on and on with stories about these kids, and
Well, Ed, but
you know,
I want to know, I've never heard this story from you. Where did you start and how did you end up in a Ukrainian orphanage? Like I don't know
yeah.
a single little boy who grows up saying, when I get older, I want to rescue Ukrainian orphans.
Well, uh, it's even weirder than that because I was born in Leamington. Down, my dad was a tomato farmer. I went to university. I ended up at the University of Guelph. I did my master's degree in agricultural economics. I became a policy advisor at the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and then I was, you know, I got hired on by the University of Guelph. They hired me back because they were starting up a new development department, you know, for overseas development. And so I was traveling to different countries, making more money than I ever dreamed. And but at the same time, I guess it was maybe about um, like roughly around the same time that the university hired me there. I had walked into a Pentecostal church down in Chatham, and I had a I would say, you know, I was raised in a Mennonite church. It's not like I didn't have any faith at all or anything, but I struggled with alcohol all my life and I went through a divorce and you know, a lot of tough things in my life. And but there I was sitting there, and I had this I'll call it, you know, people say revelation or something, but I genuinely was sitting there and I got this crazy idea. And it really is a little bit conceited if you think about it, but I got this idea that God, whoever He is, not knowing at the time personally who He is, I got this idea that for some reason He had come to that church that day because He wanted to talk to me, you know, which is, I don't know, you can kind of
Ed,
imagine things, but I,
it's 100% true.
yeah,
It is not conceited at all.
yeah,
It's the same logic that lets us bridge the concept of God being with each individual human for their whole life, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
you met him there. God is outside of time.
big time. Like, I mean, and you know, when He began to speak to me, He's basically telling me that He loves me, you know, which I had heard before, but that particular day, because I knew it was Him, I I think for the first time in my life, I thought, like, I guess the best way to put it is, all my life I thought maybe there is a God out there somewhere, like maybe some, you know, but if there is, He probably doesn't like me very much. And 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 the reason I thought that was because if there is, He knows everything about me. Like He knows my deepest, darkest thoughts, my deepest, darkest deeds, everything. And if He knows everything, like how could He possibly like me? You know, that was my, and so, but that day changed everything. And I realized despite all of that, He just loved me more than I could ever imagine. And that changed my whole perspective on life, on everything.
You had a spiritual and physical experience that day.
Yeah, yeah, big time. I was weeping. I'm like hiding my face in the back of the. I'm sitting in the back row, hiding my face because men don't cry, right? And I'm just like that the whole time, and it was yeah, it was completely changed my life. So at the same time, I'm doing this agricultural work, you know, and turned out my pastor was going to Ukraine, and I had some agricultural work that God had opened the door for in Ukraine, and so I went and I met him there. Came back. I was going there and coming back, doing, you know, these big international development conferences in Ukraine with the president's administration, and I was back in Canada, and one night, like just a normal everyday night, I was laying and I couldn't sleep. Just it got to be around 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hadn't slept a wink. I was just laying. I wasn't nervous. I didn't feel sick. I just, my mind wasn't racing or anything. I just couldn't sleep. And I started to pray like, Lord, I don't know what this is because I'm not jet lagged. But I'm just laying here, and just really began praying and praying. And all of a sudden, God spoke to me. It was like, uh, like someone took one of those memory sticks, that you put in the computer, just popped it right here and unloaded like 10,000 ideas in 1 second into my chest. And I realized that God wanted me to move to Ukraine. Like he wanted me to leave my job, leave everything, just
Holy
walk
smokes.
away, and just like I knew 100% that was it. And so I walked away from the best job I could have ever met. I walked away from everything, and I moved to Ukraine, and I didn't know why. I honestly, I remember the director at the university asking me like, what are you gonna do there? And I'm like, I don't know. And he thought I lost my mind. And anyway, I got there, and it turned out the Pentecostals were starting a little Bible college, and so they asked me if I could help out with that. And I'm like, guys, I've never been to Bible college a day in my life. Like I've never studied anything like that. And you want me to direct a Bible college? Well, you could do the administration. Well, yeah, I can do the administration. Well, administration of the Bible college took me like an hour a day. And then the rest of the time, I'm like wandering around, wondering, like, Lord, why did you? And then the big turning point was this guy came along with his pastor to Ukraine to do some teaching in the Bible college. And the guy had a suitcase full of toys. And I'm looking at him like, why do you have a suitcase full of toys? He said, oh, they're for the orphans. I'm like, you know, orphans here? He said, oh, they're everywhere. Don't you know that? And I'm like, no. He said, well, it's like Romania. There's orphan kids all over the place in these sort of warehouses that they keep them in. I'm like, I have. So we asked the pastor to take us to this place, and if he knew of anyone, and he took us to that place where um, we found out later that the local people around there, because the kids were disabled, the local people called it the place that God forgot. That's what they called the orphanage, the place that God forgot.
What a
And
crazy dramatic, like I'm gonna use that in a story at some point, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
honestly too, what a terrible, terrible title.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But we also realized later when we found that out was that's exactly why God had sent us there, because he wanted to show them, listen, I have not forgotten this place, not at all, not even a little bit. And ended up doing greater miracles with those children than
So
probably,
Ed, your
all
day
those people that called it.
your day one, you show up at this warehouse where these just filled with disabled, loveless orphans
Yeah,
who've never been loved. How the heck
yeah.
do you start? Like, what do? Do you go
So
grab a
so
diaper or a shovel?
yeah, the first thing was like I walked in, and all I wanted to do was leave, like genuinely. Like when we first got there, the guy started handing out toys, and I was like, my goodness, because I'm in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, God, you got some explaining to do, you know, because what did these kids do to deserve this? First of all, to be born like that. Second, to be abandoned by their parents. Third, to be in this loveless, horrible place. Like, why would you do that to these kids? Why would you allow that to happen? And I was probably for the first time in my new faith, like, if you get to the point where you're almost doubting the existence of God because that doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
Like, did they do something wrong before they were born? Like, 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 why on earth? And why was I born where I was born in Canada with everything that anyone could ever imagine, like this life of full of riches and perfect family, perfect, everything. Like, what did I do to deserve that? And I remember I was walking out of the I'm walking out of the orphanage. I'm just like completely like I said to the guys, I don't even want to say anything. Like, I'm not going to pretend to be happy here. This is, you know, and and I was walking out, and one of the kids, through a translator, he came up to me and he's like handing me the toy that I gave him. He's giving it back to me. And I asked like, why is he giving it back to me? And he said, the kid wanted to thank me for coming. And he said, I don't have anything else that I can give you to thank you for coming today.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
I'm just like,
So your
I walk
heart is
out.
broken.
Oh, I walk outside and I'm looking up at the sky, literally. And I describe it sometimes like this giant, as I'm standing there, this giant teardrop falls from heaven, hits me right on the head.
Huh.
And in a moment, I realize, Rudy, when I gave my life to Christ, when I said, I'll do whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do your will, not mine, he started to orchestrate my path so that I ended up at that place. And it hit me right there in a moment. I realized, oh my goodness, God loves those kids. And he, for some reason, chose me, to come and change their lives. And man, it just hit me like 1,000 bricks right in the head, like at one moment. And I ran back and I'm like literally yelling at the guys, we got to change this place. They were all leaving, going back to Canada, but I said, I'm staying here. I'm gonna change this place. I'm just determined now. We got to do something. And the
Huh.
next day, the next day, I went out and I bought 20 strollers. Okay, so because we got into this one room when I was there, and there were about 18 children in this one room. They were in cribs. They'd never been taken out of their cribs in their lives. One of the girls was 19 years old. She'd been
What?
in that crib her entire, yeah, yeah, yeah. She'd been in that crib her entire life. And they told us these kids don't understand anything. They're just vegetables. They'll never walk. They'll never talk. There's no reason to, take them. And we were like, no, 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 no. It doesn't matter. You still need to, you know, love them, treat them the way a child should be treated. And so we got a little bit of, we were facing a little bit of conflict with some of the workers who thought we were crazy and that we were trying to show that they were bad or something in the beginning. But we just started to take them outside. And I can, long story short, out of those 18 kids in that room, six of them today are walking. About eight of those 18 are talking now, are like, and it was just pure, like every day, taking them out, rubbing their heads, man, showing them around, taking them around in these little strollers. And
There's
then
the
we had people
lesson
come
right there, Ed. Every day.
every day,
You
every
got to
day.
be
And then
consistent.
we had girls come from Canada. At one point we had six girls from Canada working in there, doing this every day, taking them out. I'll never forget. Crystal came to me one day. She said, "Ed, you won't believe what happened." I'm like, "What?" Vadim, one of the boys, he started to talk, and he was the first one that even said anything. And I was like, "You're kidding me!" And like, she's no, 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 I'm serious. He started to talk. He's talking, and I'm like, "What did he say?" You know what the first words of his mouth were? Like, this sounds like I'm making this up, but he said, "Jesus loves me." That was the first words that came out of his mouth.
Ah,
Like, you can't make that stuff up. Like, seriously.
Ed,
Like,
you're destroying me over this. I'm like almost in
yeah,
tears.
yeah. So it was like we've got kids now from there who are like one of the boys, Anton. He's won three Olympic, like Paralympic medals. He's known all over the country. Like, just we've had just amazing miracles come out of that place. I could go on and on and on about the things that God has done. But that was my day every day before the war started, and we were just focused on doing everything we could to help these kids in all these orphanages that we were working on.
So
Yeah,
I'm kind of it's kind of a two-pronged question here. where did your ministry evolve to right before the war? And then how was your ministry used in the war?
Yeah, so the interesting part, like that's a very good question because something interesting happened along the way. And along the way was we needed volunteers for the orphanages, right? We needed people to come out and help. We couldn't just do it all with people coming over from Canada, obviously. And so I started to go to different churches that I'd come aware of through this Bible college that I was helping at and different things. And so I started to work with the pastors and tell them about what we were doing, getting some of them involved. And so I developed a relationship with probably close to 100 churches altogether, that were sort of involved in like what we were doing. So when the war started, it was amazing because, like, for example, so Samaritan's Purse, like they come into Ukraine, they don't really know really well the people that they're going to be working with. So it's very risky. Red Cross comes into Ukraine after the war starts. They don't really have like amazing, networks of people that they know. So there was a lot of, not so good things that happened during that time. But with
Like did
us,
did people take advantage of it, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, I was even in stores and you could see humanitarian aid that some of these organizations had sent was being sold in all the variety stores.
Hmm.
And so you knew stuff was going on. But what I had close to 100 churches that I knew these guys for over 20 years. Like these were people that I trust like my own family. And so there I was sitting there in Canada. I'm thinking like, man, we got to get well, the other part was is that I had all the banking set up because I knew I was going to be in Canada for a year for a furlough. So all the banking was set up so that right through my phone, I could be sending money to different accounts, of people that are working with us. We had about 40 workers in Ukraine, so everything was set up. And as soon as we got going, well, the churches were like how fast can we go, like we want to help people, we want to go. And we had for example, one guy down in Zaporozhye, which is near the nuclear plant that the Russians took over there, and it's being bombed regular. Well, he had about 30 people in his church for about 15 years, and more like 20 usually that he would have, right? As soon as the war started, he was able to, we were able to help him, to help people. And very shortly, he had about 20 people coming to Christ every Sunday in his church. And within a few months, over 400 people. And then he'd have like 200 people in the hallway, like the foyer outside the church that couldn't get in. And so people started to come 45 minutes before the service just so they could get a seat. You
Hmm.
know, it was and this was happening in churches all over Eastern Ukraine. Kind of like, when they say when the 9/11 happened in New York, they say that the following Sunday, all the churches were packed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was part of that, but it was also, a real move of God going on at the same time. So we had all these things, and now it was about a year and a half ago. The so the bishops of those like 85, I guess around 85 churches, they came to me about a year and a half ago, and they asked me if I would be the general superintendent for their churches, you know, and and
My
I was
goodness,
like,
Ed.
I was like, really, you know me well enough that just even in this interview to know that, like, for me, that was like my first question to them was like, guys, first of all, I'm not even Ukrainian, you know. And the one bishop, he looked me right in the eye, Rudy. He said to me, Ed, we don't know anyone who's more Ukrainian than you are.
Oh,
And I'm telling you, tears in my eyes after he said that. I said to him, that's probably the most wonderful, amazing thing that anyone has ever said to me in my life, because because just the realization of what God was doing through all this time and why He sent me there, and and then I said to him, I said, but you know, I don't know. It's just like I'm not a I'm not a scholar. I'm not. I never claimed to be an expert on the Bible or anything like that. I love to read the Bible. I love my relationship with Christ, but I'm not a never even seen myself as a pastor. And they said, but Ed, to us, you know, you're our pastor,
Hmm.
And so I'm telling you, it just has blown me away. And here I am now. I came into Ukraine yesterday, and this Sunday we're ordaining a new pastor at a big church here in West Ukraine. And they've also asked if they could come under our kind of like group of churches, and uh, and and I'm like, me? You want me to ordain you? Yeah. So, but but really, in the in the purest form, uh, some of the amazing things that happens in our lives is when God does things and uses people that others maybe didn't expect exactly to be used for that, or that someone that it should have been someone else, but for some reason God decides to do it this way, and yeah, it's beautiful just when we allow God just to do things as He wants to do them, I guess.
So Ed, I have this distinct impression, and you can correct me if I'm wrong or not. You keep your eyes off of politics. You're focused on the people.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Like I like if if to put it this way, if you think about it, um, think about the politics during the time of Jesus when He lived. You think it was like better than it is now? It
No,
wasn't.
I
Like,
think it was the same, I feel like.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Like there was this empire, there was this dictator, there was occupation. There's imagine like soldiers walking up and down the streets in Canada and beating people and hitting people and taking money from them, and and it's even hard for us to imagine that level of sort of chaos and control. But he lived in that time, and then they tried to suck him in to the debate or the arguments or the
Over and
you
over
know
and over.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And 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 the more you think about his answer, like the more you really think about what he said. And I've been thinking about this for a long time, especially since the war started, is he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar, give to God what is God. Well, what is Caesar in his kingdom? Nothing. Nothing. But what is God's? Everything, right? But it also, the answer that he gave also satisfied those who were focused on the earthly kingdom, because he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. That would be, well, of course, Caesar's is everything, right? So
Yeah.
we need, and 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 so with one answer, he just completely gave exactly, what they needed,
I never thought of
and
it from that perspective.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
wonderful.
and there's the genius almost, if you look in the words, especially for his time, the time that Christ lived. Uh, all of his words were just like literally out of this world. Like we accept them now because we've heard them for 2,000 years and we've studied them and everything. And but but for the time that he lived, they were words that like you can't even imagine someone saying words with such meaning today. As he was saying over and over again.
I know it's crazy the
Yeah,
scripture. I call it
yeah,
the spinning gem. I can read the same
yeah,
scripture over and over and it means something different depending on where I'm at.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, and he said, my kingdom is not of this world. And then he said, if it were of this world, my disciples would fight.
yeah,
That's what he said.
yeah.
Like, and even that, you just think about that. Like, think about what he's saying. Think about what he's saying when he's washing the feet. Like,
Yeah.
imagine God himself washing your feet.
I can't.
Like,
No.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's exactly why he did it, because he knew that, we wouldn't even be able to fathom that kind of love, that kind of uh, giving, that kind of servanthood. Yeah,
Ed, I've got
yeah,
the distinct sense here. So the war starts, and then God makes you a general.
yeah. I guess in that sense, and I guess uh, I'm still overwhelmed by it. I'm still even daily. I'm like, and every once in a while I'll say to the bishop, we meet almost once a week on Zoom and have calls and that. We spend half our time laughing, which
Yeah.
is, and but every once in a while, I just say, are you guys really sure that you made the right decision? And one thing that really will surprise everyone that comes with me to Ukraine and traveling around, um, the amount of joy that you find. Like it's it's I think it's surprising because you don't expect to come to Ukraine right now and find this immense joy amongst the leaders, and
Hmm.
amongst the people who are helping. And
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ed.
yeah.
That was actually me. I'm in Ottawa right now. Part
Okay.
Yeah, participating, and it's actually something else we could talk to. I'm participating with the Cardis Institute, which is a Christian think tank in Canada here.
Oh wow.
And they're
Wow.
having an annual it's called the Cardis Exchange, where they invite people to come participate and discuss hot topics. So what we're discussing
Wow.
is incredible. And also I've recently associated with an organization called ARC, the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship.
Oh
It,
wow.
it's an
Okay.
international leadership group that's sort of setting itself up to be a contra to the WEF, the World Economic Forum.
Oh wow.
And so, yeah, I'm in Ottawa right now. I was invited here by Cardis to participate, and our timing's amazing. And I love how God works because I'm on my own journey
Mhm.
that I have to tell you sounds similar to yours. I wasn't even sure why
Wow.
I came to Ottawa. I just knew I should be here.
There you go.
And
There
so,
you go.
and now I'm talking to you today, and I can't help but see all of these connections are going to form into something in the future. I know this. I have faith in that.
Amen. Amen.
So
Amen. Very interesting.
we left off with you just as you were talking about how you're now in this a senior leadership role in these circles in Ukraine. And can I imagine now that you've eliminated orphanages in Ukraine then?
Yeah, I wish I could say that. The situation basically shifted as soon as the war started to, like I said, evacuating people, just helping people. We've delivered groceries, like 2 weeks worth of groceries to over 250,000 families now, since the war started. And so that's about 1 million people altogether that we've, delivered significant food to. And that's basically just coming to them, and what we say to them, we're just like, God told us to bring this to you. That's all we know, and just because, God spoke to me early on and just give them something to eat, right? And we started doing that, and the response has been unbelievable. Like, we've seen, just our sort of estimate, about 40,000 people in the last 3 years have come to Christ through that.
Incredible.
And not just, I'm not just saying like they said, okay, well, like these are people that really made decisions to follow Jesus and to begin, a relationship with him. And and so it's kind of like the tale of two cities. What we're seeing is the was the worst of times, and yet in many ways it's been the best of times. And which it's almost hard to say it, but true. And certainly for people who are focused on um, things other than the things of this world, we're seeing amazing things happen. And yet, you know, at the same time, the most horrible things that we could ever imagine, like just last week in the city of Kryvyi Rog, where we have our main office. Uh, there was a missile that came down, basically like a cluster type ballistic missile that, shrapnel from it just went out and immediately killed 8 children in a playground just outside of our office, and blew in the walls of the building, and our workers, of course, went out and saw this horrendous, thing that they never thought they would ever see in their lives. Um, about 20, I think around 20 people were killed there, and then another 60 people were hospitalized, and and so I don't play down that part of it, but on the other hand, we're just seeing just a great kind of revival in the churches. And I was walking out of the church um, in Canada just a while ago, and these three ladies were coming into the church, and they said, we're coming into the church, and we're praying for revival in Canada. And I was like, man, that's fantastic. I said, we have revival in Ukraine right now because of the war. And one of the ladies looked at me, she said, maybe we should be careful what we pray for.
Yes. I always use this example. If you pray for patience, God will put you in traffic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, so, and then I said to her, though, I said, wait a second, I need to rephrase that. I said, it wasn't the war that caused the revival. It was the good and the love that was everyone was doing when it happened. Like the war created the situation, but the love created the revival. Like people came and they found genuine support from the churches. They found a place where they could lay down, there was a cot for them to sleep on. They found food, when they desperately needed food for their family. And that, genuine love like created the, so, so now, probably about half of the children that we were helping before the war in the orphanages, about half of them, we helped to move out to Poland, uh, Belgium, uh, Romania, Turkey, even to Turkey, different places where they are. And but half of them stayed, and so we continue to work with those orphanages as much as we can. And and many of those orphanages have filled back up now with children from the eastern war zones, right? That have been sent now for, that lost parents, let's say, or different reasons that have come in. And so we're almost at a point where I'm starting to think, you know, sort of gradually shifting back to helping, focusing on those children again.
I feel like with your like as a superintendent in your new position, you may have increased resources. Like I assume you can accomplish more, or is that not really?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like
Okay, good.
yeah, we've never had like that was another thing that like we started to get more donations than we've ever had as a ministry, right? And even different people that weren't acquainted with us before that suddenly and so it wasn't so much that I was fundraising anymore, but my focus started to become like more fund management, like in
Mm,
making sure that funds were being used effectively everywhere. And we've been very fortunate that way. Like, I mean, compared to, I used to do some work with CEDA, and the international aid, and probably they had, roughly about 20% of the funds actually made their way to,
yeah.
where the need was, right? And just because of consulting fees and programists and all these other things, that needed to pay for. But uh, we're probably like we're really close to 100% of the funds that are raised are getting right to where they need, and they're being used effectively, which is probably the greatest miracle that I see. Someone asked me a while ago, "What's the biggest miracle you've ever seen in Ukraine?" And I've seen some amazing things, of course, but I said maybe one of the biggest ones is that in all the years we've been working over here, we've never lost a dollar, like in Ukraine. like that's a miracle. Most organizations, have situations where funds are either misallocated or go missing or are stolen, or all kinds of different things that happen. And we've never lost even a single dollar. And I was sitting there thinking about that the other day, and I thought that really is, you know, to me, kind of shows the hand of God on what
And
you're doing. It's
I get such a pure sense of mission from you. Like you're not, you don't care about the, it doesn't seem, and correct me, it's jump in, you don't seem to be too concerned with politics, not that you don't care about them. You don't seem to worry about the trajectory, because I feel like your job, that is to respond regardless. You're like, well, whatever
yeah,
people do, there's going to be hurt people in need of love, and that's my job. So
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
care what the kings and politicians are doing. You're just going to clean up the
yeah.
mess.
Yeah. Exactly. 100%. And
Yeah,
it, and the funny part is that I often get invited into those
of course.
areas where the kids and I remember the first lady of Ukraine under the former president Poroshenko actually invited me to her office, and I was like, you know, thinking like, I hope I didn't do something wrong, or wondering, why she's. And so I had to go through six people, in order to get to her office. Like they had to sort of vet me, who are you? And I'm like, she invited me to come. I'm thinking like, why are you like, and I didn't request to see her. And they're like, but who are you? And like, why is she inviting me? Well, so I started telling them what I do, and then they said to me, "Oh, she's trying to set up a special education program, like for kids in Ukraine, because they don't have anything like that." And I said, "Oh, well, that makes sense." And then they said, uh, I started explaining where I was and how I came, and the one lady says to me, "Don't like, don't talk to her about God."
Hmm.
And I was like, it just it catches you when someone says that, and I'm like, well, I didn't come here to talk to her about God, like, just thought that was kind of an but I think she thought maybe I was some kind of fanatic, that would start to try to hypnotize her or something. And anyway, so I get in, and we're meeting there. So I'm meeting there with her, and we're sitting at a table, just the two of us in the room, and it's this kind of like long table, and she's at one end and I'm at the other end. And then I said to her, I said, Marina, I have to say, I heard that you're, trying to develop a program to help children with special needs, and education. And I just want to say, like, that's amazing. I think, for you, obviously, like, I knew her husband was extremely wealthy, right? And like, not only president, but very wealthy. And I said, you know, I just wanted to say, like, that's really amazing that you would choose to help those children. And she's looking at me, and she just kind of leans over and she says, Ed, it's not us who are inspiring you. He said, you have inspired us. And I'm sitting there like I'm telling you, Rudy, sometimes it just kind of, this is the president's wife talking, and she said, you came from a country, from another country. These aren't even your children. You've given your life to help children in this situation that aren't even yours. He said, you're inspiring us, Ed. And I was like, in that moment, I'm like, I'm just surprised that she'd even heard about me. But
And
yet,
what's that scripture about? Will be put in front of leaders and
yeah,
kings for our humble
yeah,
servants.
yeah. And so when you like really genuinely, if you look at, it's not like I'm trying to avoid politics. It's not like I'm trying to avoid some of these things, but my focus really is, I wake up in the morning and I sit on the edge of my bed and I clap my hands. My wife will tell you, I do it every morning. I get up and I clap my hands. I say, Lord, this is an amazing day to just go out and take on all the opportunities that you have for me. And I pray with all my heart that your will would be done today,
I
not
want
my
to
will, because I know where my will goes, and I do that every morning, and that's enough. It's enough for me just to to do that today and focus on those things and really, you know very well, Rudy, you have a fight with your own will every day,
every day.
every single day.
Yeah.
And you're doing something right now because you know in your heart, for some reason, God wanted you to go to this meeting, to this,
I didn't
and
even
you're
want to
just gonna,
go. I didn't want to drive five
right,
hours.
there you go. There you go. And so you do that every day and say, okay, Lord, you tell me where to go next. You tell me what to do. You bring every person that he brings along that way, every person you meet, it's a gift from God for you today,
Amen.
right? There you go. And you never know where it's going to lead. You never know. Uh, uh, you can only imagine the things if we continue to stay open to only doing His will instead of our own. Uh, Amazing things happen.
There,
Just
there's this
unbelievable
meme.
things.
There's this meme, Ed, and it shows this guy in the back seat of a car, and the car is driving crazy, and then it shows the front seat, and it's Jesus taking the wheel, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
car is
yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah,
car is catwalking and going over jumps, and I feel like
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
God, it's you
yeah,
let God take the wheel, and
yeah,
the adventure of your life begins, and who
yeah,
you
yeah.
are begins to come out of that.
All right, and just imagine how you would feel in the back of that car, regardless of what the car's doing, if you know that Jesus is at the wheel. Like
Yeah,
that's, you know, you would sit there like, hey,
game
like
on.
a little faster.
Hey Ed, they can only kill us once.
That's right. That's right.
So I want to share a personal sentiment, and then one more thing, and then probably wrap it up if it's okay, Ed.
Yeah.
I have a similar thing. I count every day of my life. In Psalms, it says, "Teach me to number my days so that I may grow a heart of wisdom." And so it's kind of like your clap and thank you for the day. I've started counting
Yeah.
every day, and so today I'm 15,548 days old.
Wow.
And I give each
That's
day a
good.
number, and that's just part of my personal practice. I just wanted to share that because I share the same sentiment and the preciousness of each
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
And then
Amen.
and then before I wrap it up, Ed, like I first off, thank you for taking the time today. I would like to do this again, actually, in the near future if it's okay. Um,
Yeah.
but also, I'm starting to connect with people. I've just met with a young man for breakfast this morning, and he's right away asking, Rudy, what can I do? How do I get involved? And so, like, can I start shipping young, eager Canadians over to you, or how does this work?
Absolutely. Yeah. Basically, uh, uh, sometimes I'll talk to people. Obviously, it takes a certain special person to want to come to Ukraine right now, right? It takes uh, it even takes special people to want to do this daily, abandonment completely to whatever God wants us to do, right? But but people who are willing to do that, we pray for that. Like we're praying in Ukraine all the time. Like Lord, please send laborers because we got the harvest big time, and that's always what happens. Then it's where do we find the laborers, to do everything that needs to be done? And so, yeah, I'm extremely open to that, and anyone too. Like you can direct them to my website, just loadsoflove.org, org, and yeah, just direct them that way, and be more than happy to connect with more people.
Great. And I think actually that's about it. You've quenched my curiosity for a morning, anyways.
There you go. There you go. There you go.
Ed, first, I thank you so much for reaching out from Ukraine, and I'm going to be in contact with you uh, very shortly. Actually, I'd like to connect you with a group called Partners. Are you familiar with them?
No.
It's another international children's aid organization, and
Oh,
just
okay.
just to increase the web.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Ed,
Fantastic.
on that note, sir, God bless you. Thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, I'm
Oh,
moving down the road.
yeah, show
You
us.
can
Look.
see
Oh, good.
yeah, this is Lviv
Yeah.
in Ukraine. And I'm going down the road. A pastor is picking me up and taking me to the city of Lutsk this evening,
Yeah.
and yeah, on from there.
Okay. Hey, if you get into any interesting situations, let me know so I can interview you when you're in the thick of it.
Okay,
Thanks, Ed.
okay, great. Okay, great to meet you, Rudy. God bless you,
Hey,
man.
God bless you too. Thank you, Ed.